All right, welcome to Touchdown Talks. I'm Spencer Taylor. This video going to be sort of a Week 10 reaction, but not a reaction really to the league-wide action. Mostly just going to be focusing on one particular team, that being the Chicago Bears. I'm going to focus just on my reaction for the Bears for Week 10 and just the current situation of the Bears and really just my current feeling on the Bears situation as a whole, basically throughout my whole lifetime at this point. Which, being that I'm saying that, obviously that might signal to you where we're going here, but and certainly if you have any idea what's happened in the most recent last few Bears games, you already know where I'm going here. But of course, the main reason I'm focusing on this is the Bears are top of the line in news for the NFL today. That being Tuesday, the day I'm recording this. Yesterday, if you're watching this when this video comes out. But yeah, the Chicago Bears have fired their offensive coordinator, Shane Waldron, relieving him after only 9 games as the Bears' offensive coordinator, and they will be promoting into his place the previous offensive passing game coordinator, Thomas Brown, who will now be stepping in place of Shane Waldron, presumably for the rest of this season. After that, all bets are off. Chances are he'll be replaced by somebody else. But in a press conference, Matt Eberflus discussed it.
And came in this morning, and I had my normal meetings, normal Monday process, and again, there's got to be a change and adjustment to what we're doing because we obviously lost 3 in a row, but there's also the sight of we're 4-5, haven't played our division yet, and we're in the process of starting that this week, in a big football game. So again, just in the process of getting that done, there will be changes, adjustments being made. Again, I'm not going to disclose those right now. I'm not at that point in the process. Monday's a long day, in terms of the evaluation of everything, in terms of, lineups, in terms of the, coaching, in terms of how we need to do better, in that coaching and how we need to do better in the communication in game, during the game, after the game, prior to the game. So it's important that we take time to make those decisions and make the right decisions. That's for the Bears, best for the Bears going forward for this week and then going into the future. So I think that's the most important thing that we do, that we have some steadiness here, and but also make the necessary adjustments and changes that we need to make, what's best for the Bears going forward.
And when it comes to changes and adjustments, what all is under consideration here?
Yeah, I mean, just in-game communication, in terms of that, it's got to be better. The adjustments, the tactical adjustments need to be better, with that. On all sides, and everything's on the table. And it's important that we look at everything and we take the time to get that done.
For Matt Eberflus, this being his 3rd season as the Chicago Bears head coach, really on the last leg of being able to prove whether or not, he should be the Bears head coach going forwards. And certainly the current trajectory points towards no. It would be very surprising, at least currently where we sit. The Bears would have to pull out some pretty impressive upset wins in order to get Eberflus to keep his job going forward through 2025 at least. Eberflus has not gotten the Bears to win a single game on the road on Sundays. Only ever won 3 games on the road, period, under Matt Eberflus, which is just an insane stat to think of. The fact that the Bears have won only 3 games on the road under Eberflus and lost about 18 now, and then with this most recent game at home against the lowly Patriots, who are pretty much playing for draft position at this point, to lose to them in the humiliating fashion that they did is crazy. And really just this last 3 weeks, going all the way back to the Commanders game, that ever since that game, things are just kind of in a tailspin for the Bears. They didn't really play very well on offense even that day. late in the game, they found some sort of a rhythm here on offense, complementing some of the good stuff that was going on defense. But both sides of the ball had plenty of moments where they made mistakes, especially late in the game when the defense blew it and allowed that Hail Mary comeback by the Commanders in the last second of the game. But ever since then, things, the way it's been getting handled there, just don't seem to be working out well. Of course, there was tons of drama the following week with benching Tariq Stevenson. Seems like a lot of players felt like Matt Eberflus put too much blame on the roster rather than the coaching staff. Didn't take enough of the blame himself in press conferences and things like that. And so, there was drama with that. Tariq Stevenson reportedly removed himself from practice the day he got benched. He's played since, but since then, just team-wide, the offense has not done anything, has not scored a touchdown in both of the previous games, could not get into the end zone at all against the Cardinals and against the Patriots. Cardinals, all right, that's fine. The Cardinals are playing surprisingly better than most would have thought coming into the season. They're still atop the NFC West. So, okay, but that was still coming into this season. If the Bears were going to have any shot to make the playoffs at all through a wild card berth, or at least play impressive enough to maybe have there be somewhat of a discussion about should Eberflus stay, the Cardinals was one of those games that the Bears needed to play pretty well. And then certainly this most recent game at home, where the Bears have actually been okay under Eberflus. They've had an okay record at home, certainly much better than on the road. But to then lose to the Patriots at home, and not only lose, but in a super humiliating fashion. Also, under Matt Eberflus, this entire season, the Bears have not started the game with a lead in any game this season. Every single game, they have gotten out. They've gotten behind. They haven't scored a single, opening drive touchdown. I mean, they've been pretty much shut out in the first quarter for the most part. Every single game this year, they've been playing behind on the scoreboard, often behind the sticks on offense each drive, often in third and long situations. Caleb Williams is not playing up to expectation. The first 3 or 4 weeks of the season, he was kind of playing okay for a rookie, but not great. Certainly was struggling. Then he had that stretch of about 3 games where he looked really good, looked like he had improved, and really throughout all that was first, about 5, 6, 7 games, looked week to week like he was incrementally improving. But then this last couple games, especially, Caleb Williams as well, his stats personally have gone down the tube. Now, for the offense, for the team in general, sure, there are a lot of injuries on the offensive line against the Patriots. They were missing 4 offensive linemen, so that's a huge deal. Some key injuries on defense as well that I think are going underrated and under the radar, but still, injuries in the NFL aren't a good excuse. That's not an excuse that's going to save anybody's job. And for the performance overall over the last 2.5 years with Eberflus as the head coach, it's not going to suffice. And so somebody had to go. Again, this sort of unfortunately feels just like a stepping stone towards the entire coaching staff getting cleaned house at the end of this season. But at least for now, in an effort to rejuvenate the offense, do something, Matt Eberflus and the Bears decide to fire Shane Waldron and promote Thomas Brown. Now, Thomas Brown has been with the Bears only since the beginning of this season as the passing game coordinator. Previously, he was the offensive coordinator for the Panthers last year, and he's also spent some time on the offensive staff for the Rams between 2020 to 2022. So that's kind of his recent coaching history. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, it's certainly hard to believe that firing a head coach 10 weeks into the season is going to, or not head coach, firing an offensive coordinator. It's hard to find an example of firing an offensive coordinator or a head coach in that matter mid-season and, seeing really any meaningful improvement throughout the season. Certainly with head coaches sometimes, again, you see maybe a 1-2 week bump where the team gets some energy and some motivation around that new interim coach. But offensive coordinator, same deal, maybe even to a lesser extent. There's not very many examples outside of maybe the 2012 Ravens, who replaced their offensive coordinator midway through the season. They ended up going on to win the Super Bowl, but that was a different team as well. The 2012 Ravens, they were already a really good team, just felt like they had something missing. They made a change at offensive coordinator, and they won the Super Bowl. The Bears are definitely not that. It's not that they're just missing one thing. They're not just missing offensive coordinator. There's a lot going on wrong there, beyond just an offensive coordinator. So, it's hard to, as a Bears fan, believe that anything crazy good is going to come out of this. Again, it kind of just feels like a scapegoat, stepping stone towards what's coming here in a month and a half or so. But, or even sooner than that, depending on how things go. And that's the thing, the Chicago Bears, they have the hardest remaining schedule left in the NFL based off of win percentage. 6 of those games remaining on the Bears' schedule are all division games. The Bears are the only team left in the NFL who have yet to play a division game. That, of course, ends here in just a couple days in Chicago against the Green Bay Packers. I will be there for that game, as a matter of fact. I am flying out to Chicago here in just a few days, so I'm really excited about that. Excited for that game. Whatever the outcome, I'm excited to finally be visiting Chicago. I've never personally been out there, even though I've been a fan for most of my life at this point. But, that aside, I will later on, I'll probably have some videos this upcoming week after the trip, maybe some, vlog type videos to share here on YouTube, just of my experience there in Chicago and at the game. But back to the state of the Bears currently with this change, I really want to stress that, to me, again, there's tons of blame to go around, but for me, the blame, to touch on the players for a minute, there's also rumors that some of the veteran players have been approaching Ryan Poles, the Bears GM, and Matt Eberflus, and supposedly asking that they bench Caleb Williams and start Tyson Bagent. I don't know if those rumors are true. I have, all the stuff out there about that in the last day or so. All very much rumors, all very anonymous, all that kind of stuff. So, who knows how true that is, but certainly we've seen some body language on the field this last couple weeks, especially between DJ Moore, for example, and Caleb Williams, of DJ Moore looking frustrated, maybe not necessarily at Caleb Williams, but at the whole offensive situation as a whole, and yes, maybe Caleb Williams as well. Which, again, it's tough to say if the rumors about veteran players wanting the Bears to make a quarterback change, at least for now. I don't know if that's true, but it's certainly something that could be possible. To a veteran player in that locker room, it may seem logical to, hey, what we care about is, doing the best we can to win now. That's what matters to us right now. So, maybe in that situation you feel like, okay, Tyson Bagent, sure, he's just been a backup, but he did, when he did come in last season in relief of Justin Fields, he had some decent games where he looked all right. He's had longer inside the Bears organization with the current offense. Again, it'll be a new offensive coordinator now, but chances are for the remainder of the season, they'll probably be, I doubt they'll change a whole ton from what they've been doing this season and past. So it'll be similar stuff. Maybe they try to simplify things, but I wouldn't be surprised from a veteran player's perspective. Maybe you're kind of thinking, hey, let's sit Caleb, he's struggling, we're struggling. Let him sit, watch how we do with Bajent and see how we can do, and see if maybe that helps Caleb Williams in the long term later. But again, I don't know if any of those rumors are true, but so that there's those rumors going on with the players, and again, just execution on the field, injuries, all that kind of stuff is true, and I would put that in the roster category. But the main, we've touched on roster, coaching staff, certainly a lot of blame to go there with Matt Eberflus and the rest of the coaching staff, but to me, the majority of the blame has to go on the Bears front office, specifically ownership. I'm not talking about GM. I still think Ryan Poles, the current Bears GM, I still think he's a really good general manager. I think the Bears should keep him, give him, whether you fire Eberflus or not at the end of the season, which I do think will happen, and you should. Again, I thought they should last season and hire Jim Harbaugh. For whatever reasons, I've discussed those. They didn't do that. Even if you move on to a new head coach in 2025, I do think you should keep Ryan Poles. But now to the ownership, of course, which, they're the only ones that can choose to change that based off of either selling the team eventually or, changing who is at the helm at chairman. But the current chairman and head of the Chicago Bears is George McCaskey. George is the grandson of George Halas, who founded the Bears, helped found, a lot to do with the NFL. So very historic person in NFL history and Bears history. But so George McCaskey, grandson of him, the Bears ownership, not thought of very highly around the league and by the media. Very, as far as NFL ownership goes, the Bears are really one of the only teams who have never been sold. Again, it's basically the Bears are basically the family-run business of the NFL. If there's any team that is that is what the Bears are. And so, unfortunately, as much as it's cool for the history and that stuff, it certainly hasn't been helping as far as winning goes in recent decades, or certainly in the last decade specifically, which has been under George McCaskey. So for George, he became the Chicago Bears chairman in 2011. Under his leadership at chairman, the Chicago Bears have zero. So again, he became that in 2011. So he's been there for 12 years as the chairman. In that time, the Bears have 0 playoff wins. They've had 3 general managers, 5 head coaches now, and they're now on to their 10th offensive coordinator, if you count Thomas Brown. So in 12 years, to have 10 offensive coordinators, 5 head coaches, 3 GMs, and 0 playoff wins to show for it is just crazy. And to run through those coaches, when George McCaskey became the chairman, they still had Lovie Smith as the head coach. And then about a year after George McCaskey became the chairman, that was when the Bears fired Lovie Smith after a 10-6 season. I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to get over that. It was, at the time, it was something that even for me kind of felt like, okay, maybe it makes sense. But Lovie Smith had coached the Bears for 8 seasons, had done pretty well, had one of the better, for Bears coaches in their franchise history, he has one of the better winning percentages, and certainly for how long he was there, won about 56% of his games as the Bears head coach. Got them to a Super Bowl, of course, got them to the playoffs a couple times, a few playoff wins as well. So just, as head coach, the Bears were 3-3 in the playoffs under Lovie Smith. But yeah, so George McCaskey becomes the chairman shortly after, a year or so after, decides he wants to make a change. He hires Mark Trestman. That didn't go very well at all. They only kept Trestman for 2 seasons. Now, the beginning of Trestman's tenure in that first season, Bears had a really good offense, but especially into 2014. The defense really fell apart under Trestman. So they fire him after only 2 seasons. Then they hired John Fox, had him there for 3 seasons. He had one of the worst winning percentages for a Bears head coach in their history. Won only about 29% of his games that he coached there. And then that was when the Bears moved on to Matt Nagy, who, I know Matt Nagy kind of got ran out of Chicago. A lot of people in the media and fans were done with him. And, to be fair, even when the Bears moved off of Nagy, I was okay with it. I didn't feel like the Bears had had some pretty disappointing playoff losses and things like that, some collapses in that sense, including the double doink. But a lot of that was, moments like that were kind of bad luck, and I think part of it was that Nagy was brought in to be the offensive coach, and it just didn't work out very well. The Bears have just, always been a defensive culture, so they've tried to dip their feet in the last decade into offensive coaches, but then when that doesn't instantly work out, they seem to be a little bit too impatient with it. So move off of Matt Nagy, even though he had a pretty good win percentage as well as a head coach, ended with a win percentage of 52 with the Bears. Again, got them to the playoffs a couple times with Mitch Trubisky as the quarterback. And then in 2022, hired Matt Eberflus, and Eberflus has one of the worst win percentages for Bears coaches, right at 29.4% currently. So not a good win percentage there. And yeah, so all of that goes under George McCaskey's ownership. And, before that, when it was his brother running it, who ran it from 2019 to 2011, that was when they had the Super Bowl run. I mean, most of that stint under Lovie Smith. And then previously when it was George Halas's son, the father of the current Bears chairman, that was a pretty good stint for them as well. Right around the beginning of that was when Mike Ditka was the coach and when the Bears won the Super Bowl in the 80s. But yeah, so the Bears, the biggest blame for me goes to the ownership. We see this around the league. If you look at the teams that are constantly dysfunctional, the teams that more frequently are dysfunctional anyways, sure, maybe they have stints where they made it to the playoffs this random year. This couple of years here or there, they were all right. Plenty of franchises like that. Certainly, unfortunately, the Bears have been that. Certainly since George McCaskey took over. The Bears, I mean, even before him to some extent, but, teams like that, the Browns, the Jaguars, the franchises that typically are more dysfunctional. Certainly up until the last few years, the Lions were one of those teams. There's just these franchises that, for the most part, they just year after year, they're not good. Oftentimes, if that's happening with a franchise, it's not the quarterback, it's not anybody on the roster, it's not the head coach that's currently there, it's not one of the 2 coordinators, it's not the GM. Oftentimes, if because again, those are coming in and out, getting fired, getting released, traded, a lot of players, coaches, all that. They might only be with one franchise for a couple years, 3-4 years. Sure, if they're really good with that franchise, they're there much longer. But otherwise, very short-term relationship with one franchise. So if a franchise is struggling for decades on end, or only having very small windows of success or relative success, chances are the issue is not any of those lower spots. It goes up to the up to the ownership level of the franchise. And unfortunately, in my opinion, that is the case with the Chicago Bears. Again, as a Bears fan, I respect the legacy of George Halas. And I think I've talked about this, this past offseason at the beginning. I respect the legacy of George Halas. And I do think, in a way, it's cool that the franchise has been family owned ever since. But I think it's long overdue that the Bears ownership gets sold to somebody else, somebody who actually knows what they're doing, has the money to invest in better coaching. Because again, that's one of the rumors as to why the Bears didn't go for Jim Harbaugh, is because they didn't want to pay the price tag. And so again, not to bag on the McCaskies too much or anything. If you do look at them ranked among all the 32 NFL team ownership groups, the McCaskies rank towards the bottom as far as money that they likely have to spend on the Bears and things like that. So for the Bears, from their ownership, they just don't have the money to spend that some of these other ownership groups do on things like coaching. And then also, they might be a great family, great legacy there in Chicago and with what they've done with the Bears. But certainly in the last 20-ish years, certainly the last 10 years, hasn't gone well under their ownership. And so, yeah, as a Bears fan, I do hope that I see the day when there's new leadership, whether it's a new McCaskey as the chair that runs it better, or just simply the team being sold and ran by somebody who is more interested in the best of the team performance wise, and somebody who has the funds to invest in making the team better. Again, through better coaching. It's just something that the Bears just haven't really been able to do and get in a long time. So that's all I'm going to say on that. Again, very interested to see how things happen. Either way, win or lose, I'm going to be in Chicago here in just a few days. I'll probably post some videos. As I said, I'll probably record as I'm going through Chicago at the game, and those videos, whatever clips or things I end up recording, I'll try to find a way to put some of those together and post them for you here on YouTube, and also for my own personal reasons for the memories, that kind of stuff for the trip. But I am very excited. Bears, Packers. As last time I checked, the betting line, predictably favored the Green Bay Packers. As a matter of fact, I'm going to check that really quick just right now out of curiosity. But last I checked, they were favored by 6.5. Currently looks like that line has actually moved to 6. So I'm guessing that is thanks to, some sharps moving in favor of the Packers. But also maybe on the Bears. I mean, 6.5 is a pretty big line. Bears are at home, so it'll be interesting to see how this game goes. I'm just hoping at best, my main hope is that it's an entertaining game, exciting, relatively close one would be my hope. I hope that the Bears show some life on offense. Maybe the defense is able to get some energy back, maybe create some turnovers. Certainly with Jordan Love at quarterback for the Packers now, as good of a quarterback as he is, I've discussed it. He's definitely more of a Brett Favre type quarterback for the Packers. So, at any given time, he could give up a turnover here or there. So that's something that this Bears defense definitely, I'm sure, would love to capitalize on. And if they're able to do that, maybe we're able to see the Bears offense come alive again and get some scores finally, make it interesting at the very least. But yeah, Packers favored by 6. But either way, win or lose, I'm gonna have a good time, and I hope you will have enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think of the Bears situation. Who do you think is to blame? Is it Caleb Williams? Is it the injuries? Is it Matt Eberflus? Is firing Shane Waldron going to make any kind of a difference? Do you think the only hope for the Bears is, hope someday that the McCaskies sell the team? Do you think that matters at all? Maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe ownership doesn't matter that much to you in your eyes. Let me know all that down below in the comments. Please hit subscribe, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future videos. I appreciate you for watching if you've gotten this far, and I will see you in the next video.